So allegedly, the oldest profession in the world is street walking, otherwise known as selling the box or giving away the cookie in return for some financial benefit. And though this may be true, I don't know. I was not there in the beginning times of our species, but I do know that in times past, this has been a taboo. If you became a streetwalker or a night walker, a damn night crawler, you were for these streets literally. You were considered to be an outcast. This was not a behavior that we promoted. It was not one that we endorsed. And it was definitely not one that was essentially seen in a glamorous light, right? It wasn't something that we pedestalized. Yet here we find ourselves in the modern day and age. And we have not only created, how do I say this? We've not only made it okay for this to coexist with the rest of society, but we've pedestalized it. We glorified. Now, we have individuals who become literal stars, quote unquote stars in our society, celebrities. They become influential based upon the box. Yeah, we've gotten to a point where we literally have individuals who have created multis of millions, if not billions of dollars, if we're to go into the Kardashian clan, simply from essentially selling the box either to an individual or a host of individuals, a multitude, to the masses. And to me, I'm not the type of guy who says all work is work. I don't believe that slang and dope is actually work, right? I believe it is a hustle. It is a finesse. I had my time back in the day when, I was slanging them things or whatever it was. That was not work. That was me trying to finesse. That was me essentially poisoning the community if we're really to get down to it. And so when people try to have this entire S work is real work, look, you can try to justify the thing 10 ways till Tuesday. It just still is what it is. It is degenerate. There is a lack of morality, a lack of self-respect and integrity. It is not work. You might be getting paid for the box that you're giving away, but it cannot be valid in the same way that a teacher is valid. It cannot be valid in the same way that a doctor, that a garbage man is valid, that a barber is valid. Somebody who's given a genuine service. And I know some of y'all thinking, well, that's a real service. She's giving a real service. I mean, there's a clientele. No, you're adding to the degeneracy of the culture. I will be unapologetic about this statement. It is dysfunctional, toxic, chaotic, and problematic. Simple. And so today I am calling for the extermination. Today I'm calling for the complete obliteration and the banning of OF and anything like it. Again, I understand you're always going to have those who look to either validate themselves through giving the box away for nothing. Those who, are deeply traumatized. And so they look for ways to externalize that trauma or to cope through that trauma. And so you're always going to have a class of people who are just going to simply be throwing the box around. You will forever have the streetwalkers. That's God honest truth. But we can at least take it off of the pedestal because some of y'all have daughters. Some of us have daughters. We do not want them to see an image of this glorified OF model who's making all this money and has all this so-called freedom, and then having our daughters emulate that, having our nieces emulate that, having, the young women, even older women in our families trying to emulate that sort of behavior. When you normalize something, you incentivize that thing. When you pedestalize it, you create greater incentives for that thing. So again, there will be those who will make money, but guess what? It used to be people on the outskirts. It used to be those who essentially they used to have brothels for that, right? These were seen as places of degeneracy, of immorality. They were on the outside of the towns. And if you went into a town that was filled with this, you knew what those people were about. You knew that these individuals had a certain moral compass, and that was not legalized across the country, let alone, across the planet. This was a taboo. And again, I have come to a place where I realize that you can create certain freedoms. Most things should be freedoms in our society, but there are other things that should be made illegal for the protection of the very citizenry. that you're looking to give freedoms to. Freedom of speech, absolutely. But once it becomes literal violence, I'm not talking about in, the far left, words are violent. No. I'm talking about like genuine threats, etc. That there's no place for that in our society without consequence at the very least. If somebody puts a genuine threat on your life, there should be a consequence for that. They can exercise the freedom to speak. You can also exercise the freedom to get their ass locked up, right? But there are other things such as the use of different intoxicants, different drugs and things of that nature, where you're helping your society to prosper when you make these things illegal. Now, some things you put restrictions on and other things you make illegal. Oh, but it creates a black market. Oh, but they're going to sell the things anyway. It's going to be more dangerous. Well, guess what? When you make the thing okay, like I was in California for close to 20 years in the Bay Area, and I got to see how the homeless issue, which was really at its core, it is a drug abuse and mental illness issue, became drastically worse with more money or more resources thrown at it, yet with the laws working in direct opposition. So people no longer needed to clean up off the dope in order to get into a rehab center, or not a rehab center, but in order to get housing for say, right? That was, I believe, SB 80 or something like that. There was a bill in California that Gavin Newsom opposed. He actually voted against, which essentially said, you no longer have to get these guys clean. They can just get housing. So essentially, these buildings were now turning into dope houses or trap houses, right? Crack house. Call it what it is. That came as a direct reflection or a direct result of that law being changed. Before, you were forced into that. So some would and others wouldn't. But at least you were incentivized to take steps to get clean. When you're now no longer incentivizing sobriety, then you're going to have more of that problem proliferating. It's the same thing with crime. All of a sudden, people are getting a slap on the wrist for stealing something less than $950. Maybe in a world where it's completely illegal, out of 10 people, maybe 2 people are going to steal, and they're willing to take the risk of going to prison. Now that you take prison out of the question, you now have maybe 5 of those individuals out of the group of 10, or maybe even 6 or 7, depending on the culture that you formed. So imagine that. You have now created an environment where it is not only okay to be selling the box, where before it was illegal in really most of this country, at least. I don't know about the global history. In some places, you were worthy of being essentially unalived in some of these cases, right? If you were somebody who was in this lifestyle, whether you were in the business of it, as in you were a PIMP, or if you were a distributor of it in essence, if you were the quote unquote service provider, y'all both get locked up, y'all both go to jail. But now you can go on the internet and literally essentially put it up there for $5, $10 a month. Somebody can come and do the same thing, no pun intended, but somebody can log into your account and y'all can basically do what was happening on the streets through a screen. Now, I think the very same thing when it comes to, the corn industry. I think it's the exact same. I believe that it is a bane of our existence. I myself made a decision at around 20, almost 21 years old when I said I'm cutting this out of my life, and I did. There's only been 3 times in the last almost 10 years now that I quote unquote relapsed and were either viewing something or, fiddled away, right? I'll just leave it at that. But I made a decision early on in my life that this is not going to be a part of my life. I'm not going to perpetuate this. And it was for a multitude of reasons, right? Some of them were very, selfish or maybe pride-based or ego-based, where I said, I don't want to be a weak man. I'm not willing to go through life with that sort of crutch and that weakness. Then there's obviously the moral aspects and things of that nature. My body is a temple, right? And then there was also what the industry actually is about. A lot of these women who are on the other side of those screens are actually, victims, if you would say that. A lot of these individuals are not the most mentally stable. And so there are those who take advantage of these situations and will get them in such situations. Now, this is not to take away any sort of accountability, because we all make our choices in this life. If you're a grown adult and you made the decision to step into such an industry, to sell yourself in such a way, that is between you and the donkey that you rode in on. But nevertheless, it is a personal decision. And so, again, this conversation, it's strange to me how we even have to have some of these conversations nowadays where it's like, hey, this is immoral, or this This is problematic if we take it away from the moral conversation and we just want to look at it biologically, if we just want to look at it from a psychology standpoint. No true psychologist worth their salt. Not these, again, far left extremists who are trying to sell this new idea of reality. Like if a psychologist can't tell you the difference between a man and a woman, you can't trust them to begin with. There's no basis in science at all. This is a person who is rooted in their dogma. But when you have somebody worth their salt in psychology, they will let you know that obviously the hookup culture and anything that pertains to that is going to be detrimental to your mental, emotional, as well as physical health. It is going to be a threat upon you. And when you're doing these things, even if you're not being quote unquote touched or whatever it is physically, there isn't that actual physical interaction. Maybe you're at at a club dancing or whatever it is. You're still suffering ramifications of that. I'm not even getting into the spiritual aspect yet. I'm not even getting into the moral conversation about it. If you just wanted to view it just strictly from a quote unquote humanist standpoint, right? Just from the physical, you're going to suffer mentally. That's why many of these women who leave these industries end up either hooked on some substances. They end up, having these drastic conversions where they become extremely religious and fundamental because they're trying to wash themselves of all of the shame. Or you have the worst case scenario where they just take their own life. And that is a reality. And so when we look at this thing of the OF, it's not just about the site that I'm speaking of right now. I'm speaking of the entire mentality that allows for such a thing to be not just created, but normalized. There's a reason why like the Silk Road was something that was a black market thing, right? Because these things were not being promoted. You couldn't just get a hitman or something like that on Craigslist or maybe you can, I don't know, but you're not going to get it off of Amazon or something like that, right? And if they found out that it would be a huge controversy. Because that's something we know, we recognize as humans, there's something wrong with that. There's something off about that. And so when we look at this thing of, your body, absolutely, we all make choices that are our own choices to make, but that does not take away from the consequences. And so if we want to negate those consequences, it starts to change your perception when you start to really view your life from the lens of, a lot of the parents out there, right? Or you have little sisters or little cousins, whatever it is. And the more you mature and you start to look at them as children, because before you were a child as well. And so maybe it doesn't ring the same way, but now you're looking at them, I'm close to 30. I'm about to be 29 in a few days, actually, February 14th, if anybody's curious. So when I'm starting to look at you, you're 13, 14, 15 years old. You're my little sister. You're damn near, you're damn near daughter's age. If I had a kid real early, you damn near my daughter's age, right? You're 10, 11 years old. You're a child. And imagine me allowing for a world where we not only, again, you can't stop people from creating these things that will be in the shadows, but promoting it in the open where people are essentially being pushed even towards it. It's, this is something to do. We got I hate using the names because it kind of gives them a little, push or whatever, but the Bonnie Blues of the world and the Lily Roses, these individuals, 1,000 people body count in a day making these challenges, and making it look so glamorous and it's so fun and I made all this money. They're not telling you the reality. It's like a dope boy. When I came out of that life, one thing I knew was that I would never want that. I'll never wish that for anybody. Not even a person I deemed as an outsider in my life, let alone somebody I love. You making this money, this. They're not going to tell you about the paranoia. They're going to tell you about the sleepless nights. They're going to tell you you constantly feel under threat. You're always looking over your shoulder. Police or somebody's trying to get you, and somebody sometimes does get you. You are constantly in a paranoid state. Like 24/7, you are in survival mode. And so that life, and then, best case scenario, you end up locked up. And, you get small time and you can learn your lesson. Worst case scenario, you don't come back. I got 3 homeboys. They will never be here again. They won't come back. They all passed before they were 30 years old because of the lifestyle. But making that lifestyle, it's okay. We were told when we were young, it's cool to party, just go out, have fun, whatever. You're just having a little bit of fun. That's what these young girls are being told. It's just a little bit of fun. It doesn't really matter, body shaming. Don't let these people body shame you. We need shame back, folks. We need shame back. And for anybody who likes this mug, this is my girl. All of this is my girl. She is just an incredible eye. She just gets it. We need to bring shame back in a very, very real way. And it's not a toxic shame, right? It's not to say you're broken, you're inadequate, you're nothing. It's to say these behaviors are shameful behaviors. And when you engage in them, they're going to be destructive for you. They're going to destroy your life. That's the reality. You won't find the man that you actually want. That's a reality. There will be some dude who's going to maybe lay up with you, but that person doesn't have respect for you because they don't respect themselves. No man who respects himself is going to lay up with a 304. No man that respects himself. Every man that you meet that is laying up with, laying up and staying up with the streetwalker types, that is oogling and googling over them, that is following all these IG models, and maybe there's only 20 of us on this entire planet who don't do that. But the rest, yes. They are weak. They are ruled by lower based emotions. They are ruled by the little head and not the big head. And therefore, you are just a part of that entire cycle. Oh, but it's liberating. Oh, but it's empowering. What's empowering about giving away your temple? What's empowering about giving away essentially your God-given vessel? What's the empowering part about that? What's empowering about damaging yourself emotionally, psychologically, and potentially physically, right? Things are spreading faster than ever. What are you getting from that? Oh, well, money. That's the best way you're making money. I mean, they say what? The top 10 percentile is barely making McDonald's minimum wage money. Oh, but maybe you become a millionaire. Okay, maybe you do become a millionaire. Then what? At what cost? At what cost did you get that check? We talk about like selling your soul and things of that nature. I believe selling your soul is just essentially selling out your values and your morals. It ain't you having to go to Beelzebub and sign a literal contract. Maybe some people do, but in most cases, it's you're selling your soul by doing something you actually don't want to do because there's some condition tied to it that you allow yourself to, to sell out your values. Simple. There was a time when I was anti-drug in essence, but I then started to work for a company that sold Delta 8. CBD, yes, which I was fine with. Delta 8, which essentially is close to like, the real thing because it technically is by a loophole. But I was a part of a company that was selling that, and the money was real good and the situation I was in was real good. I was selling myself for shekels. I was selling myself for a bag of silver, And so is it really worth it at the end of the day? I really hope that the young ladies get to hear not just this message, but any message like it. And there's a lot of women who are doing incredible work out there speaking to these subjects. Please continue to do so and continue to speak to your daughters, your nieces, children, like whoever. Please continue to do so. Because they're also, and not just talk to them, but mirror these behaviors. Because they're also not just getting it from nowhere. If you're a mama who always has a new man every week or whatever it is type, like kids are watching. They're going to watch what you do more than they're actually going to listen to what you say, which is right. You must be living an example. You want your kids to stop eating sugar, but you're ODing on the sugar. That's not going to work. It's not fair. It's a double standard. Oh, but I'm grown and it. If you want to mirror behavior for your children, or you want your children to do something, you mirror the behavior that you want for your children, right? So the best thing to do is for you to live morally, righteously. Fellas, you out there, freaking whacking it or whatever it is. And then, you catch your boy doing whatever. Now you're mad at him. Oh, no, you need to stop doing that. But you're doing it. Yeah, I know you didn't think this was going to come home for you, but you're doing it. I talked to a multitude of couples when I used to do a lot of these, one-on-one calls and things of that nature, specifically within the space of relationships. Like, oh, is it okay, for my man to watch this and this? And I said, okay, well, do you? Well, no, I don't. But okay, then that's a double standard for you. But if you do, then you can't tell that other person not to because you're doing the exact same thing. But if you're not, and that's something that is a boundary, which again, I can't control and I shouldn't what you're trying to do, but I will tell you that this is going to be disruptive to your relationship. This is a form of infidelity. Some people don't like to admit that. Even some religious folk, whatever. Oh, but then, no, you're making excuses for yourself. It is. What you're consuming here, your lust in your mind, emotions, whatever it is, that is like introducing new partners into your own relationship just through a virtual form. right? Some people form their entire friendship online and they have closer friends online than they do. Just imagine what you're doing through that screen. Here, you might have a better receptivity, with me than somebody who's in your actual life because there's resonance here. There's a connection here. And so if I'm here imputing something that's actually degrading you and I, what good am I doing for this world? What am I adding? I'm taking away from it. That's the reality. That's why I can't stand for dudes like, Andrew Tate would not be as big a problem to me as he is. And some of y'all stans will be going crazy off this, but because he lives in contradiction, it's not just the things he's saying. A lot of that is shock jockey and he thirsts for attention, but it's the fact that he came from this lifestyle of literally not just endorsing, but actually being a proprietor, actually being a salesperson of corn, etc., and basically being a part of these women being violated as well as the young men being violated, like both of them, or being manipulated into these things that are going to end in a life of dysfunction, or greater dysfunction than it would be without these elements in it. And it's incredible, to think that most of us don't even know there could be a world without that. We've been so hyper, fixated or fed these images and normalized things that even 50, 60, 70 years ago, at least, these things were taboo. And now we can't even think to live without them. It's incredible. It's actually mind blowing. The fact that you got millions of boys and men on these sites, or even women and girls on these sites that are paying, God knows how much money, whether it's a subscription or donations or whatever it is, to the brothel workers, to the street workers, because that's what it is. Again, if you're one of those people and that is you, I'm not here to shame you, to say you are a terrible person, whatever it is, but the things that you are doing and you're engaging in are dysfunctional and detrimental. That's why you can even listen this far into a video like this. If that is you, this is my call to action to say, what's best. You might be afraid because you're so used to the money. Maybe you're so needy for the validation, whatever. It's time to heal. You got to deal with those intrinsic aspects. It's not enough attention in the world to go around that will heal those innate aspects, or those programmed and conditioned parts of yourself, those traumas or whatever it may be. There is not enough attention in the world that is going to fix those problems. You have to fix those individually. You have to go deep. You have to do the damn shadow work. You have to do the emotional work. You got to let these things go. The forgiveness, whatever it is that's necessary to do, you got to make sure you take care of that, because there is not enough money, not enough attention that will fix an individual who feels they're so broken, who feels they're so worthless, who feels that they're nothing but an object. You objectify yourself, right? You are even less than an animal in that, because at least an animal gets some love and affection. As an object, you're barely this mouse, This mouse might get more respect than a person who is objectifying themselves in that way. And that's the God honest truth. Oh, but these men, they adorn you, they this, they that. No, all they see is a crevice. All they see is a hole. Simple. All they see is a hole. In real life or digitally, all they see is that. They don't see a human. They don't care about you. They may think they're in love or whatever it is, but they're deluded. All they're actually looking for is, that's it. So yeah, hopefully this becomes a campaign of sorts. I might actually just, continue to steamroll this one, because it is one of those things that I oftentimes, well, not daily, but I think about it. I'm how are we still allowing this to be so normalized? Why is it that corn is seen as just a part of your life? It just has to be, most men just have to do it. You just have to get one off. No, we've been conditioned to do that. No, but it's our biological imperative that we have to let them all. Oh. If that's your justification, then go ahead and see how you end up as a man who is continuously reliant on that. And you can compare yourself to me and the other men who don't. People love to know, oh, how you so productive, how you get so much done, how you always cranking out. Boop, 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 boop. How I do it is I take care of myself. I take care of my body, right? I don't eat the carbs and sugars. And number two, I don't just freaking whack it. I don't indulge in any of that. None of it is a part of my life. My girl would tell you, I fast forward through scenes of movies. They're over there showing biddies or whatever it is. I'm like, I'm cool off that. Not because I'm so afraid to get tempted. I'm just like, that's ridiculous. Do we actually need all of that in this film? Do we actually need that? Oh yeah, it sounds real childish, sure. Oh, you must be a religious. Call me what the hell you want. But one thing you cannot call me is desperate.
I used to be afraid of the dark, place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 365, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising. They see your light shine, that's